looks like we are live. Perfect. Hello everybody. Happy Thursday. Today is the first Thursday of June, so we're doing intro to cameras. My name is Saxon. I'm the camera teacher and your host. We're going to jump into this, and as people join, by all means ask questions if you have them. There's a chat option here. You can ask at any point in time in the class. I'll answer those live for you guys. But today is camera basics. So what are we really getting out of camera basics? The thought process behind this class is to teach people the very introductory, rudimentary information they need for a camera. We're not learning about manual control. We're not getting into advanced settings. We're just learning the basic ergonomics of a camera, what all those buttons mean, and then good ways or good practices to learn kind of everything you might need to get into it a little bit better. The idea behind this is we want to graduate from our phones. So much of us are used to using a cell phone as a camera, and while that's great, there is a certain point in time where if this is something you're interested in and you're passionate about, you want to learn how to use a traditional camera. The way I look at it is a camera is like a tool, it's like a drill, it's like a hammer, it's like any of this stuff. There's lots of ways that you can use it for whatever reason you might need it, but there are really true proper ways to use it that are going to give you the best. The way that we're going to talk about it today is that this is just to learn the intro, basic, automatic functions of the camera. So I'll teach you what I know, and then we'll go on from there. First and foremost, where to go when all else fails. There's a lot of different resources out there. Check out the owner's manual. You bought one of these cameras. They usually come with a manual. If not, you'll find them online. One of the websites I got turned on to by a customer was Imaging Resource. It's kind of like a Reddit, but just for camera users and videographers. They also have a podcast too, which is excellent to check out and listen to. Very nerdy, but really fun, cool information if you're into photography. Canon, Nikon, and Sony have wonderful websites with not only just what your camera does and how to compare it with other models, but also rudimentary and entry-level skills. Nikon has one of my favorite websites. They have it where you can actually take the cursor and move it back and forth to see what millimeters do to the actual photo, what a cropped versus a full frame look like, and other cool tricks that you might need to know. And my favorite, what I'm teaching on right now, the best one out there in my opinion, is YouTube. If you don't find a video on YouTube about how to fix or do something, then it's probably a problem that is over your head and over everybody else's. They have a little bit of everything on there for everyone. And the cool part with YouTube is if you type in your camera model and 10 things you didn't know or best settings to put on your camera, you're going to get 100 different videos from all these people who will sit down and dissect and talk about that model in particular. So before we get into more of the basics, let's talk about the three main types of cameras you're going to see on the market today. There's DSLRs, mirrorless, and point-and-shoot/bridge cameras. Now, point-and-shoot/bridge are going to be pretty simple, easy to explain. They're cameras that have a built-in lens already. So it's not something that you need to interchange lenses. Typically you'll see these because they're easy to use, easy to carry around, and they're simple in form and function. But they call them a bridge camera because it kind of goes in between other pieces that you might have. If we think of the phone as one side of the hill, and then we think of the mirrorless or DSLR as the other, then the point and shoot's the bridge in between those two to bring you from one side to the other. The bridge camera, point and shoot camera is going to be better than your phone, but not quite up to the standards of a DSLR or mirrorless. Now, DSLRs and mirrorless cameras come into play because they're the interchangeable lens cameras that you're going to see on the market today. What makes those different? Well, a DSLR is a digital single lens reflex. Light comes into the camera. There's a mirror on the inside. That mirror then comes up to then show you your image through. Hi there, welcome in. That image then comes through the mirror to then show through the optical viewfinder. But similar to film cameras, the mirror would kick up on the camera, would then burn the image into the film, mirror comes back down, shutter closes, and then you're ready for your next photo once you pull the, advancement. Now in the digital world, the new mirrorless technology, light comes into the camera body, hits the image sensor, and then there's a shutter that opens it up and down. The shutter then is smart enough to communicate with the electric viewfinder, and because of that, these cameras are typically smaller, lighter weight, and they have a few other performance functions that make it the next step from your DSLR. So for a lot of new camera users, mirrorless is the way to go. But nowadays you can find DSLR cameras for a good deal in price. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to buy a DSLR camera, but those are the key differences. When it comes to the technology, you'll basically hear the same thing. Mirrorless is better for low light performance, for videography specifically. Typically it's a little bit faster than its DSLR counterpart. However, the DSLR is the original camera when it comes to digital aspect. So you're learning from the very beginning and entry level that you can without getting too confusing. So I think DSLRs are a great way to go, especially if you're not in the market for a mirrorless camera. Now that we've kind of gotten what the camera bodies are as a whole out, let's talk about SD cards. I like to say that you should have 2 of these just in case one goes bad. If you look at the bottom of the SD card, it's copper stripping that's there, and that copper can sometimes get worn out after a period of time. So just make sure you're taking care of your card as it's going in and out of the camera. But having 2, if you go out, I think 2 batteries and 2 SD cards are a necessary thing. Just in case it fails on you, at least you have a backup to be protected. I've had it once or twice before where I'll go out to do like a photo shoot somewhere for somebody, and we're in the middle of nowhere, and my card didn't work on me, and I had to reschedule, and it was a pain but when you look at SD cards, you'll see different numbers on there, and they mean different things. When it comes to photography, I recommend at least having something that's 64 gigabytes or more. If you're shooting video or plan on doing more video, I think 128 is a good idea. The next thing to look at is the speed of the card. For most people, a standard SD card, inexpensive model, will be just fine. But if you have a higher end camera or a camera that's pushing faster information, getting something that has a high read and write speed is a great idea. If you look at this little Extreme Pro from SanDisk, it shows 280 megabytes a second. And if you look above it, the Sony shows 70 megabytes. That might not seem like a big deal, but when you're doing high-end audio or high-end video or photos that have a lot of information on there, the faster the card, the more reliable it is. But again, where do they go? They go to a standard SD card. I would say if you're doing high-end photos or video, get something with a good speed. Just for photo, 64 gigabytes is more than enough. For video and photo, 128 is recommended. Your picture shouldn't live on the memory card. I think that's an important thing. I have a couple customers who come in all the time and they'll just keep buying SD cards. I looked at this one guy's profile and it looks like I've sold him about 25 SD cards over the last year alone because he just won't delete the photos off his card. I look at the card as like a car. So if the camera is your house and your computer's work, the card is going in between the two. You're meant to take the photos, download them onto the computer, and then clear the card out and keep shooting with it. So keep that in mind. Also too, if you leave all your photos on the card, something were to go wrong with it, now that card's useless and your photos are gone. So keep that in mind too. The cards are flimsy, they're easily replaceable. So my steps to taking off my photos from my from my camera onto my computer is I start by turning the camera off. I wait at least 5 seconds. This just gives it a chance to power down everything that it's doing internally to settle. Then I remove it and I put that into a card reader. I try to avoid using my camera to transfer photos to my device. Again, there's apps that you can download on the camera to do it. However, if you want the full image quality, plugging it into the computer is the best way to do it. I don't like to plug the camera in. I think about it this way. When I'm done shooting or I'm doing like something I'm editing, I like to have a beer while I'm doing it. All it takes is for my dog to come over and knock the beer. Now my computer and my camera are in jeopardy of getting ruined. So it's simple things like that that you might not think of, but it takes one horror story and then you'll be a changed person forever. So try to avoid using your camera. Just take the card out, insert it into the computer, get a card reader for it. There's tons on the market, so you can get out all sorts of stuff. They've got it where it's just like a simple USB stick. They've got it for the high-end cameras if you're using XQD or Velocity cards. And they've also got it where if you don't have a lot of plugs on your computer, they'll offer more plugs and a place to put your SD card. So tons of different options. Pick something up so you have it. It's not a bad idea. Next thing you're going to do with this is copy the photos to a destination folder. I recommend not moving them. Copying them is better because at least if something were to fault or go wrong, you didn't physically take the photos off the card to move it to the computer. You copied it from one location to the other. Hopefully that means that they're still there if, let's say, your computer shuts off or if the transfer fails. If if you move them, there's a chance they're in that limbo period to get to the computer, they could fall off. When I say a destination folder, I mean creating a new folder on your computer that's labeled whatever it is that you did a photo shoot of. I'm very particular on this, so if you go on my computer, you will see I have a section for photos. I have folders labeled every year that I've taken photos. When I click on that folder of the year, it's labeled by month, and then when I click on that, it's the event with the date I did the photos. The only reason I do it that way is like if somebody asked for something, like I had one person where I was shooting photos for their dance recital. They were dancing over at Roosevelt College, this is when I was still in school. I went out, did it. It was, I forgot what the performance was called, but the date is 12/9, 2019, whatever it was. So I have that saved in my computer. They asked for it like 6 months ago. We somehow reconnected, and they were like, I'd love to see those photos again. So I had to go through, and all I had to do was type in 12/9, and it shows me anything labeled with those dates on it. So I could remember that, but I couldn't remember anything else. That's the reason I'm so particular with it. If you make it easy to find your stuff, you'll never lose it for the most part. A lot of people will just put stuff into a folder, and then they're like, oh, I have to scroll through and find which one it was. So just think about that as you're going forward. You don't have to be as crazy as I am with it, but like I get dads and moms who come in that take pictures of their kids' games. I tell them, take the league that they're in, so you could say, Glenview T-ball league, and then put the date the game was. Or, let's say the Cubs versus Blue Jays, and they played on, June 5th, 2025. Make it so that way you can find it in the future without having to confuse yourself. If you create a folder, if you're using Windows, you'll find it through Explorer. If you're using Mac, you'll find it through Finder. Again, if you lose it, you put it in the storage, you don't keep it on your desktop. Just easy ways for you to find them. And then lastly, you want to copy the photos to another place. So external hard drives, Prime Photos, Google Drive, whatever you prefer. I like hard drives versus cloud-based solutions. But cloud is really cool because you can save it and then access it anywhere that you want. If you're on the road or you're in school and you don't have access to whatever drive you have, at least you can sign into your Google account and find the photos too. Lastly, eject the card before physically removing it. Never just pull it out of the computer. If it's Apple, you drag it over to the trash can. That'll then remove it from the computer so that way you can pull it out properly. And in a Windows computer, you go to the bottom right corner, click on the arrow up. It'll then show you connected devices. You can then make sure you eject it. From there then, as long as you've downloaded all your photos and you're done, format the card in the camera. Formatting will delete everything on the card, but it'll also make sure that the card is set up for that camera. What I mean by that is like you can just put a card in the camera and start shooting right away. But if you format the card, it's going to make sure that the space on the card is optimized for your camera specifically. That could make or break 200, 300 extra photos that you can get out of the card, depending on the storage size. So I recommend it. Do you have to do it? No. But it's still not a nice option. You can also still delete them while they're on the computer. Like for me, for example, I have 5 or 6 different cameras I'm shooting on when I go out. So what I normally do is like the card I use in that camera is the only card I use for that camera. So I format it once, and then I just delete them while they're on the computer, put the card back into the camera. Just one less step that I have to do on the actual settings. Whatever you prefer, whatever the easiest way of you doing it, that should be the way that you're doing it. Everyone likes pictures. To visualize it, it starts with the SD card. You move that to the computer. Then your 2 options that I would recommend, saving it onto the computer and then putting it either in a hard drive or onto a cloud-based solution. Whatever you like for that, there's so many different ones out there. The 3 I usually recommend to people, so Google Drive, everybody knows. If you're doing stuff for work or for anything else, Microsoft for their Outlook email uses OneDrive. And if you're really getting into photography and want to get into more of the art side of things, Adobe Creative Cloud has their own storage system. On top of that though, you have the access to all of their Photoshop apps and everything else that they have. So depending on which way you're going with it, there's a lot out there. But like I said, I use a hard drive personally. That should be the most boring part of the whole thing. So now we talk about the actual camera itself. I'm using a DSLR body to show the buttons and the layouts because DSLRs have been around for the longest. So this will pertain perfectly for you. Again, every camera is a little different, but they all have these buttons somewhere. So keep that in mind. If you don't see it right away, ask me a question in the chat or ask me in person. I'll tell you where you can find that. So if we start at the top of the camera, you should see a few different buttons on there. There should be a red dot or a red circle somewhere on the grip of the camera. It could also be off to the side or on the body itself. That'll be the record button. If you're shooting video, you're doing stuff, as long as you're on automatic, you click that button, it'll start the video for you. Click it again, it'll stop. Easy way to start taking video when you're using your camera. The power switch and shutter release are pretty self-explanatory, but usually you'll see the power switch somewhere around the shutter button. Flick it one way or the other, that's on or off. The shutter release then is your ability to take your photo. Full click down will actually shoot the photo. Half a click will focus for you. And then if you do a full click, it'll take the photo. There's another button I'll show you in a little bit that also is your focus. Some people don't like that kind of action, so they have it where there's a focus button in two spots, the shutter release and one other place. Exposure compensation. That's usually, it looks like a yin and yang symbol. There should be a black plus, white minus. You'll see that somewhere in the camera. On the Canons, it might be on like the actual dial pad on the bottom. But what that stands for is when you're not in automatic, if let's say you have all your settings set up on your camera and you're like, well, it's still too dark, it's still too light, you can click that and easily go more exposed or less exposed to bring in more light or less light. It's an easy trick around not having to change some of the settings on the camera if you've already got what you like on there. But it's also just an easy way to get a darker image or a lighter image without having to use Photoshop either. Now the mode dial is around this section too. This is what I like to consider like the gear shift of your car. This puts you into neutral, drive, reverse. This puts you into automatic and all the manual controls for the camera. Right now we're really focusing on auto, and I have another slide that'll really drive that home, but I will explain what the other ones do as well. On DSLRs, you have this button called Live View Switch. If you toggle that, what it'll do is switch from your viewfinder, the glass eyepiece, to then the screen itself. So at any point in time, you can toggle between those two, and you'll usually hear a click when you do. That's the mirror going up and down on the system itself. The other thing to keep in mind is that if you're a mirrorless camera user, that button's usually called display. You press the display button, and then from there it'll change. And then the command dial. If you are in anything other than automatic, the command dial has a purpose. If you're in automatic, it's basically useless for right now. But the command dial will be one of the things that switches either the aperture, the shutter, or the ISO. That can include the exposure compensation, but without confusing you too much, that's how that one works, the command dial.
Well, you know what?
What do you got?
This here? Is this, okay.
Yeah, so what do you
That's the command dial?
Well, so in this case, your command dial is actually right on the top there.
Okay.
Yeah, so when you're using certain settings on this guy, like if you're using manual or aperture or then the shutter priority, this will control one of those for you.
Oh, I see.
And then full manual control, it'll control that, and then this is how you set other things on here. So on here you have your autofocus button where you can choose how the autofocus is going. You have white balance, you can change the coloration of white, which this won't be available because you're in the basic mode right now. ISO controls its exposure to light, and then this is your mode dial. When you're using this, it's either going to give you burst photography, a single photo, or it'll let you do timers. And then Q on here as well lets you set a few other different things.
Okay. Okay, but this is the command dial.
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
Gotcha.
Some cameras actually have it where there's two command dials, one in the front and then one on the top like that, but that's what that would look like for you. Yours is more of a ring. Some of you might notice that too online here. For anyone watching at home, depending on the camera that you have, the command dial could be just a small little like circular ring that pushes back and forth closer to the front of the grip of the camera. Could also be on the front grip, and then it also could be that command dial, that big hockey puck looking thing on the back. So there's a few different locations for it, but it all does the same thing. When you're not in manual or when you're not in automatic, you can use this to control things like aperture, shutter, ISO, and exposure. Start with automatic though. Get used to shooting on automatic. The only reason I say this, and sometimes people get a little bit iffy with this, you're brand new to photography. Don't stress yourself out too much learning the manual controls. It'll come with time. The nice part with automatic is that all you need to do is focus on framing, taking the nice photo. The camera does all the heavy lifting for you. Once you realize what your camera's doing, you start to understand the numbers and you become a little more adventurous, then have fun with all the different settings. But for beginners, for brand new people getting into this, don't overwhelm yourself with manual control. I tend to see a lot of people who get into photography, they'll try manual first right off the bat, and then they don't want to pick their camera up anymore because they're like, it's too hard. It's not that difficult, but if you start with automatic, you're going to have such a better time. But for those of you who want to get away from from automatic, you're a little more experienced. Remember one thing: all mode dials are a little different. All brands have a different setup for it, but again, it's all the same thing. It's that gear shift on the car. It's your ability to switch between the automatic controls to more manual controls. While every dial is different, these are the main ones I would tell you to be concerned over. Auto, or A+, that's auto control over settings and functions of the camera. Your M stands for full manual. That gives you the ability to change every piece on the camera. And that's where then it comes down to your eye and how you know photography a little bit. And photography speaks in a unique language when it comes to adjusting things, because there's no one right answer. But once you get it, you get it. A or AV is aperture priority mode. That gives you just control over the aperture setting on the camera. You can use the command dial to switch that number if you're on that setting. And then S or TV is the shutter priority. That's the speed at which the shutter is opening and closing. And that, again, command dial does the same thing. It lets you control. Now you should see a P or a PA on your camera. That's program auto. Aperture and shutter speeds are still automatic, but everything else is changeable. If you want to change your burst photography, you want to change ISO, you want to change your white balance, your exposure compensation, your target recognition, you can do all that under the P setting. So that's where it's different from auto. But just like auto, your aperture and shutter, the camera's going to dictate that for you.
So is that kind of a median between auto and full manual?
100%. I would say that auto and P are your first two steps before you get into TV or AV.
Okay.
Once you start playing with those help, because when you're priority controlling one of them, it's like if I'm on AV, I'm only worried about aperture.
Mm-hmm.
The camera's going to dictate speed for me for what it sees, and vice versa. If I'm on shutter, then it's going to dictate aperture, and all I have to do is worry about the speed. So if you get good at these two within a week, these are the next two to go to, then you'll see what your camera's really made of, and then that's when you can go to full manual and go like, all right, cool, now I know what I'm changing and what these mean.
Okay.
What I usually recommend for a lot of photographers when you're first getting started, make a still life on your table. Put something that's shiny, something that's matte, something that's fruit or a flower, something that's plastic, but just all these different materials. Do one of the settings and just take a photo, change the number. Take a photo, and you'll see the differences between them and how the camera's reading it. Anytime I buy a new lens, even for all the years, and I've been shooting for like 10, 15 years now, no matter what I do, the first time I buy a lens, I do the same thing. I put something that's shiny, matte, maybe two other things on there, and I just take the same photo. And it's redundant for the most part, because I know what I'm looking for, but I catch like my lens's weaknesses, and I catch what it's good at. Then I also know like if I'm out doing XYZ, like this would be the better setting for it. It's easy ways to practice without spending any money, which is another thing I like to do. So I'm like, anything I can do there to better myself, I'll give it at least a shot. The B is one of the ones you might see, you might not see anymore. A lot of them just put it into the TV or the manual setting. But that means that the camera's fully customizable, but it's going to be long exposure based. So when you see these beautiful astrophotography photos, or you see these really highly detailed photos of like light and you see movement with them, those are long exposures. That means that the camera's been left wide open, it's just reading the information in front of it, but things can move and change, and that's where you get these really cool blur effects. You ever see those pictures of like the skyline and someone's taking a picture by the highway and all you see are the traffic lights like going back and forth? That's from long exposure. That means they left the camera open for 20, 30 seconds, and these cars are driving past, you get the blurred lines from that, but then you get the highly detailed skyline photo. You can do the same for astrophotography. You gotta be a little careful with that though, because the stars still move in the sky, so you'll get a little bit of blur with that, but it can look really cool. Scenes. Now this is perfect for your camera because you have scenes on there still.
Yeah.
Think of scenes as automatic. They're the same thing, but each one is labeled for a different purpose to make it a little easier for you to take photos on. I personally think it's a gimmick, I'm not gonna lie, but A lot of these entry-level cameras and starter cameras have that, and it's actually kind of nice. So the flash symbol with a line going through it's no flash. CA is another automatic. I can't remember exactly what it means. I forgot.
Creative Auto?
Hmm?
Creative Auto?
So yeah, so you should be able to change now colors. So like there should be filters and all these other presets on there that you can have a little bit of fun with. Then you've got your portrait, so that the little head mode, I'm trying to think of the word to use, head icon. That'll be perfect for like portraits, for blurring out the background, for focusing in on subjects. The mountains with a little cloud behind it's for landscape. The flower that's close up is macro photography, so if you want to get highly detailed shots. Then the running person is for sports. And then the all white background with a little black star on there is for nighttime photography. Again, is this going to be better than just using automatic? Not necessarily. But if you really want to get the full use out of your camera and you have those and you're still getting used to the manual controls, that's a really easy kind of cheat code to like switch to and then take the photo that you're looking to do. Getting back into it, so the flash button should be on the side of your camera. Some cameras don't have a flash button. Instead, what it'll have is a little area where you can flick the flash up and then start using it right away. Just depends on the year of your camera. FN is a function button. So depending on the age of your camera, where it's at, if you see FN, Q, or I on your camera, those are customizable buttons that usually get you to a shortcut menu for changing certain settings. So Q, I, and FN are typically the three that you'll see. In this case, FN can be used for anything. Let's say that you are interested in changing your target recognition. You know, I want to recognize humans, birds, airplanes, cars. That might be a setting that can be changed for the function button. It's kind of like a utility key. You can make it whatever you want, whenever you want to. Some cameras are a little different though, and they don't allow for that. Instead, it's just a shortcut to certain settings that you're able to change or update. Q would be a perfect example of that. Just keep in mind though, if you're in automatic and you click like the Q or the I button or the FN, it might not give you much because you're in the basic mode. But if you're in the P mode for program auto, you might have more functions to play with. Same thing if you're manual or an aperture or shutter priority. The zoom ring is pretty self-explanatory. Turn that from one side to the other. That'll give you wide angle in the portrait, depending on the lens that you have, unless it's a prime. Then you have a focus ring on the front. If you're using anything other than autofocus, that's going to be your ability to change the focus. For those getting into photography, autofocus is going to be the best. Servo for Canon, or autofocus continuous, AFC for all the other brands is a good one. But if you're taking video, that's where manual control is important. If you're doing autofocus on video, someone walks in front of the camera, it's going to try to autofocus on that person. You're going to lose focus on whatever you had behind it. So try to keep it on manual if you're doing video and get used to that. Lens retract button. Older cameras have this, but basically it's the lock button so that the camera doesn't move back and forth when you're traveling. Lens release. Hold that down, turn clockwise. That takes your lens off. Apply the new lens on. Usually it's a dot to dot or square to square, and then turn counterclockwise to your click. That's how you know it's engaged. And then that drive mode button. Again, if you see a stack of squares or a little like timer icon, that's your ability to switch from burst mode. So if you're doing sports or high action, you switch to burst, hold down the trigger, and you hear that that's that high mode. Or let's say you want to take a timed photo, you can set this up on a tripod, set it to a 10-second timer, run in front of whatever you're trying to do and take that photo. Nice part though is if you download the app on your phone for your camera, you should be able to use that. The back of the camera, you have your menu button. Any advanced settings you want to change, time and date, Wi-Fi connectivity, color correction, video settings on what quality it's doing. Are you doing JPEG or RAW photos? All that can be done through the menu. Take a look through it. There's a lot of different stuff on there. I rarely go through and change anything on my menu. But again, if you look up some tips and tricks on just your camera, you might find photographers out there who recommend you change or update this setting to do this because it'll benefit your camera. It doesn't hurt to look at. Diameter adjustment. On the side of your viewfinder, there should be a diameter adjustment. You turn it one way or the other, and it helps with your vision. So if you've got bad vision, That's a good way to look at it. You can turn that one way or the other and it should help you.
Really?
Yeah, so if you look through it right now and it's like, oh, that looks really bad, turn that dial until then it makes sense. Because a lot of the times people will get a camera, they don't realize that they have bad eyesight, and they'll put it up to their eyes and they're like, something's wrong with my camera, and it's like, it's not, you just have to adjust this.
I see it like kind of framing differently.
Yeah. Info button is really cool. Now, not a lot of cameras have this, but if you have an info button on there, here's where it's useful. I'm going to jump around a couple of these. Let's say you're shooting automatic, you take a couple of really good photos and you're like, that's the one. What did my camera do to take that photo? Because you were doing auto. Hit the image playback button, find the picture you really like, then hit the info button. The camera will tell you what shutter speed it used, what ISO it used, what aperture it used. It'll give you a full breakdown of what the camera did to take the photo. That's a really nice learning tool for when you're just getting started without having to, stress too much about getting the perfect shot. So I talked about if you use the trigger on your camera, that'll take the photo or focus for you. So will the AEL or AFL button. So the exposure and focus lock, hold that down while you're taking a picture. That'll actually focus in on whatever it is you're trying to do, and then you can just click the trigger. Some people fat thumb it and they'll hold down that trigger too hard and they'll just constantly take photos. They're like, I can't focus for the life of me. That's why they have that button. So if you're having a hard time focusing with the main button or with the shutter release, hold down that exposure and focus lock. That'll do the same thing. Click the shutter release. That'll then take your photo. Or half click, whatever you're, again, more preferring. Image playback, just talked about that. That I button, again, is similar to the Q button, which is then also similar to your FN button. So think about it that way when you're clicking on that button. The OK is your enter button. That's pretty self-explanatory. Multi-selector, you're either going to have a wheel or arrow keys. So if you're in the menu system, that's how you get around, is with that multi-selector tool. With your camera, it still does work. If you're in the menu system, you click those, it goes up and down, side to side. But if you're not on menu, then it's just those shortcut buttons of white balance, autofocus, your drive mode, that sort of thing. From there, you got to magnify, demagnify. If you take a photo, one of the ways I like to check my work when I'm shooting, I like to look as I'm doing photos to make sure the camera looks good. I'll zoom into a photo and see how crisp it looks. If it looks nice and like there's no blur in a lot of areas, then I know I'm doing a good job. If I see blur, I'm like, okay, what do I have to readjust to fix this? Usually it's focus parameter based. And then delete, garbage can logo, pretty self-explanatory. You don't like the photo, hit the delete button. It'll ask you okay to confirm. But that should be the breakdown or layout of your camera. The next couple things I got for you. So this is a photo a customer sent me. They were really upset with me. They thought I sold them a bad camera. And they were like, I can't believe Apple would do this. And I'm like, well, I have a saying that I've had since I was a kid. I've changed it from time to time, but it's not the bat, it's the baseball player. Sometimes you do your darndest to do the best thing and it still comes out crummy. In this case, she was using manual the whole time and like went out for friends or something and it just came out poorly. And so I had to explain to her about automatic. And I stress with the automatic, start with auto, get used to it. It'll help so much, but it'll familiarize yourself with the camera and it'll make you feel comfortable. That's the whole thing. I get way too many people who invest in this stuff and then it ends up being a paperweight for them or collects dust. And then I see them a year later in my class and I'm like, oh, how many photos have you taken? They're like, none. I'm like, cool. So glad I could do that for you. Your phone or your camera isn't a smartphone. Phones have made it so easy to take photos nowadays that so many people either are getting into it as a hobby because they're excited to try it out, or because they did it before and they want to get back into it and they're not happy with the phone. But they'll start using the cell phone and they'll realize, wow, my camera's not doing what the phone can do. It's not gonna, but however, you can get a picture that looks so much better than your phone or is better quality than the cell phone if you can learn the settings and the controls. That's the key to it. Everything the cell phone can do, your camera can do. It's just that the cell phone makes it so easy on purpose. It's like it's a gateway in a kind of a way. This is simple stuff, but I like to do it in the intro class to break this down. Art, fine art, photography can lead to arthritis and carpal tunnel. Just hold yourself proper pose. Be careful of your back. Don't lean too forward or down. Like lifting stuff, lift with your legs, not with your back. Same thing when you're shooting photos. Get down squats, get on a knee to take a photo. Camera should have one underneath the hand on the lens and then one on the body. You can also put a hand underneath the body too, whatever's easiest for you. And then same idea, don't put your elbows out. You look stupid when you do that. Keep your elbows locked into place. It also sucks if let's say you're on vacation, you bring the camera with you, someone knocks into you with it. If you don't have the strap on, you drop this thing, you're gonna really be not happy a camper. So keep your elbows down, try to keep your back straight, and for every other purpose, just try to lock yourself in. It seems so simple, but you'd be surprised. I've seen some weird things. Focus, then shoot, and then shoot through the whole picture. I see a lot of people, they'll just rapid fire. Take the time to focus, even if you miss the shot. Again, it's a learning lesson then of being a little bit faster with it. But focus and then shoot. And remember that it's not one part of the photo you're taking a picture of everything with it. So don't just focus on one item unless that's how you framed it. Like if you're doing a portrait and there's nothing behind the person, awesome, focus on the one person. But if you're taking like cars, for example, and now you've got trees or a background, that background's going to be there no matter what, so focus through the whole shot. If you are moving or the camera's moving, you're going to get blurry photos. When I was in college, I studied artists that was their entire life. They made millions of dollars doing that. We are not that artist. We're not going to make $1 million taking blurry photos. It's been done. So take your time when shooting, don't move, just focus in a little bit more. Again, simple stuff, but if you can just remember this while you're shooting, it will go a long way. Date your body, marry your glass. Your camera body is going to be limited. I'd say a good camera body should last you 10 years, but like a car, cameras get mileage. We call it a shutter count. Every time you take a photo, it adds to the shutter count. Eventually, the mirror, the sensor, the body as a whole starts to leak light. It slows down. It doesn't do what it did when you first got it. So don't be partial to the camera body. Understand that it's a tool. It'll eventually die on you, and then you'll have to get something new. But if you invest in the glass of your camera, the lenses, that's where the money is. It's expensive. It can add up, but if you take the time to put more time and effort and money into that, it'll go the long way on there. So I definitely recommend sticking with the glass. Don't worry about the body so much. That's not to say buy something cheapy, but that's also not to say if you walk into a place and you've got X amount of money to spend, majority of your money should go with glass versus the actual body. But let's talk a little bit about lenses, and then we'll talk about the last little bit, and then I'll open it for questions. Focal length and zoom are important aspects. Zoom is acquainted by these millimeter numbers on there, so you can see the difference coming from 70 all the way to 400. You're not only bringing in whatever subject matter is in front of you, but you're bringing in the whole image. So keep that in mind when you're shooting. It's not just you zooming in and getting whatever it is into focus. You're bringing everything forward, which can give you a little bit of this distortion, if you will. You look at an image like this at the 70 where you can see the birds and this whole skyline, and then zooming in at 400 and having nothing. So when you're shooting, remember that as far as the placement goes, and always remember that you can always get closer to an image versus you backing up further and zooming in. You can do both, but for the most part, if you get a little bit closer than zoom in, it'll help.
I think it looks like the birds are as big as the trees in
Yeah.
that picture.
So literally the background, but when you look up, the 70, the birds still look big compared to it, but you can understand the space of why that would be, versus when you zoom in, now it's wait, how close are they to land?
Yeah, interesting.
So, and then this one kind of freaks out a little bit too. Focal length and compression. The smaller the number is, the more wide angle the lens is going to be. That's great for landscape, architecture, nature, but keep that in mind if there's a person in there, now they've got a needle nose. Versus you go all the way up to 200 millimeters, now they're starting to get plump in the face and fat. So there's that middle ground when you're taking photos, but in the same boat. We're at the same length with this kid, and now the background is how much closer to him at 200 versus 16, it feels like it's a mile away. So that compression, that distortion, all comes into effect, but we need these different lenses to get the shots we're trying to get. So keep that in mind with the numbers. Typically, actually I'll talk about that in a second. I got another slide that breaks that down. Here's the common lenses you're going to see. Now, there's so many out there, so it's not just these, but these are the ones that I'm used to seeing every day. There's a few other cool ones as well. But your kit lens, this should be your starting point for a camera. Typically, it's a telephoto lens. In telephoto, we break it down by it zooming in between two numbers. This lens, telephoto, goes 18 to 55, and then it shows its aperture on here, which typically, kit lenses don't have very good aperture. They're not very fast. They don't let a lot of light in. But they're a great way to get you started, especially if you're like, I have no idea what I want to take photos of, I just want to get into this, buy the kit lens. It's going to be a long, helpful journey for you with it, and eventually it'll teach you what you want to take photos of and what you should be then investing the next one into, which could be one of these two. Your prime, also a nifty 50 is what they call it. Now, we were just talking about this when you walked in. Like, the reason that these are so sought after and take such a better photo, they might not have zoom, but it's the aperture on there. For example, this one goes to 1.4, meaning the more light you're letting in, the faster it is to the draw. And for portrait photography or for still photography, the more background you can blur out. So if you're just taking pictures of one singular item or object, or maybe a family, or it could be just a statue or a building of some sort, whatever it is, this will take a cleaner, proper image. That's why they call it the nifty 50, because it's pretty nifty.
They've got at I don't know, Walmart or Target, they have 1.8.
Yeah.
Is that a decent?
Still awesome, yeah. Anything that's in that one range, you're getting a really good blur.
Okay.
1.4, 1.2 are like usually the most expensive ones.
Okay.
But they offer like the most amount of blur, most amount of light. 1.8 is still up there. Like for your lens, you probably have like a 3.5 to 5, like 6.
Oh geez, we don't have to. Yeah.
It'll say yeah, 3.5 to 5.6 on the top there. So this is I mean, again, it's a kit lens. That's the whole point of it.
Right.
But it still will let a good amount of light in. It's just like if let's say you're shooting. Like I had a customer who was like, we're going to the catacombs in Paris. If you took that in the catacombs, you're going to have to use flash. Like you're not going to have enough light. If you had a 1.4 or 1.8, you're probably going to be okay to not have to.
Without flash.
You could probably close. I'd say it's tough with the DSLR, like mirrorless. Like my camera that I have from Sony, I can go in there and I could probably take those photos with no light, no flash, no problem. But also my camera was a $6,000 camera and it's got a $2,500 lens on it. So it's like one of those things where you're comparing, you know, an apple to a potato in a certain way.
Sure.
Which I don't mean that in any bad way for anyone watching. Sorry. If you have a DSLR, it's not a potato, I promise.
Let me ask you a quick question.
Yeah.
So I noticed that this one, and I've seen these online.
Yeah.
Is that an adjustable on the lens? The aperture is adjustable?
Yes. So that in this case is probably not going to be aperture. This is probably going to be manual focus.
Okay.
Certain lenses, certain companies will do it where the aperture gets adjusted on the lens. Other ones, they do it through the body.
Okay.
No matter what, the aperture is always adjustable, but it's dependent. Like Sony, for all of their premium lenses, their G Master lenses, it's all an adjustable aperture on the lens.
And I see they're much more expensive.
They are, but it also works just for Sony too, which is a whole other thing. But like for Canon or Nikon, they make it where the mode dial is accessible, or the command dial, so you can just on a fly turn that dial and change your aperture. So when you're looking at one of these, if that's what you end up grabbing, then this guy, when you're using certain settings, will be what changes your aperture.
I see. Okay. Gotcha.
Now the next one is your telephoto lens, which we did talk about with the kit. But where these can differ is that they're either, number one, specialty lenses for a particular reason. You can get a 100 to 500. So if you're taking sports photos, I had a dad who came in yesterday. He's doing photos for football, and that's what he needed. He's like, my kids are on the other side of the field. I'm here on the sideline. What do I do? I'm like, well, you're going to want something that zooms. Otherwise, you're going to have these wide photos that you don't see what the players are doing. Those qualify in the telephoto range. Two of the most popular are 24 to 70 and the 70 to 200. Both offer a really nice versatility of like what you get to see versus wide versus zoom. On top of that, something like this is really great because it'll help you do like an all-around photo. So 24 to 70 is very versatile. It's like your street lens. Yours is very close to that too, the 18 to 55. So yours is in the same boat as that, where you get that wide-angle portrait. You want to get the skyline, beautiful. You want to take a picture of her while she's standing in front of something, awesome too. That's the same boat for the 24 to 70. This one is just going to be nicer because it has that 2.8 aperture, which again, like the 1.4, it's sought after. Same thing with the 70 to 200. High-end lens, great, good zoom. You get a distance when you're shooting, which is really awesome and exciting. So if you're like in an area where you want to take a portrait, but now you see the eagle flying across the sky and you want to get that shot, that's where this lens would kick butt.
Is something like that overkill for a entry-level DSLR?
Not necessarily, but I mean, you're definitely gonna. I mean, like that lens right there is 2,500.
I've seen cheaper ones,
Yeah.
and I can't even recall where. But would it, like, let's say it was like some, I don't know, $300 option.
Sure.
Would that still take as clear of a picture?
It would, yeah. It's still, I mean, because again, it's not like the phones where when you start zooming in on your iPhone, it blurs up.
Okay.
That's the kicker of these guys is you put a lens on there, it's gonna do the same quality you're getting with that smaller lens, but now with an extended lens.
Okay.
So no, you won't notice. When you find cheaper lenses, it's the aperture. So
Gotcha.
that 3.5 to 5.6 you have, you're going to see the same thing on a cheaper telephoto lens.
Okay.
Not necessarily bad, so for your camera, absolutely. If you could save up and get something closer to one of these, and then eventually you upgrade the body, you'll probably be happier in the long run because you got.
And they're connectable with
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, exactly. So if you keep investing in the EF lenses, like for this guy, I would say buy full frame lenses. Obviously you have a crop sensor camera, but you can put them on there. Then you can get an adapter when you're ready to move to mirrorless, and then bring all that stuff over.
No
so
shit,
all the
okay.
money you're investing won't go to waste, which is the main key.
Okay, understood.
Nikon's the same way too. Sony's the only one where they're lucky. They pioneered mirrorless technology. They've never changed their mount. They have no plans on doing it. Prime versus zoom lens. I keep it as simple as possible. Prime lens, best background blur, but only one fixed number. So if I want to take a picture of you, if I'm not close enough, I'm going to have to get closer. That's the kind of key to that. But I can get really good background blur, really good bokeh, and a really clear, detailed shot. When it comes to the telephoto lenses, I have the power to see everything that it can zoom for. 2.8 aperture isn't a bad deal, and I don't have to move, but they're heavier lenses. So if you're someone already who like, you know, I get people who come in, they're like, I'm gonna go to this, you know, I'm going to Colorado, I'm in the Rockies, like, I wanna get the most detailed shot I can. What do you recommend, you know, for zoom lenses? And I'll show them some options, but the first thing I'll tell them is like, remember, now you're lugging this thing around. Like, can you do a hike while carrying this? Like, think about that. Some people don't, and then they're like, I'm not bringing that with me. And it's like, okay, well now you just spent all this money for what? So that's just a way to look at it when you're doing it. Again, prime lenses, you can always crop in later on and get rid of some stuff so that way you get the perfect photo you want. But if you want to do it all in one shot, all in one go, then you'll have to get over the weight.
They still have a focusing capability, right?
All of them do. Yeah. So you can do manual focus or autofocus on all of these. There's usually either a toggle on the lens or it's in the camera body itself where it lets you do that.
Okay.
So, yeah. The last lens I'll talk about is the travel lenses. Now you'll find wide angle lens, we have wide angles, telephotos. You'll find macro lenses, fisheye lenses. There's all sorts of ones out there, but these are the most popular, common lenses. This is one that I sell a bunch of. Technically, it's still an entry level, like a kit lens, but this is cool for someone who's like, I just want one lens that can do everything. I don't want to spend a lot of money on it, but I don't care about like aperture, shutter, any of that stuff. 18 to 135, you're going wide angle to telephoto, you see a bird flying in the distance, you should be able to get that shot. They've got lenses that are 28 to 400, Nikon just made one. It's an $800 lens, but it does everything, and a lot of people, they won't put a different lens on their camera. I had a parent come in for a safari that he was taking his family with, to, and they bought a travel lens like this. I think it was a little less than $1,000, but the photos he got were fantastic. Lots of sunlight, lots of open space, so he didn't necessarily need to worry about not enough light coming in. Great options. Again, they have them out there. It's really up to you and what you're comfortable with. And then, what lenses do you need? I like to put the quotations around it because you don't need any of this stuff. This is all at once. But if it were me, and I'm coming in, I have a limited amount of money to spend, and I'm like, okay, what do I need? And I would talk to someone like myself. 3 lenses. They call it the Trinity. This is the traditional photographer's cookbook. A prime lens of some sort. This could be a 35, a 50, 85s are really popular too for portrait photography because it gives you a much more close in, but then it eliminates so much of the background. 50s are the perfect because that's how humans see. We see in a constant 50 millimeter. and then 35 would be your like walking around street photography lens. 24 to 70 is the next one. This is considered the other street photography lens that everyone's after and loves. And then 70 to 200 is your birding lens, your wildlife lens, your sports. But if you have one of each of these in your collection, you should want nothing else. Like in the perfect world, right? Obviously, you can get any variation that you want. There's a 16 to 35 lens that's very popular in the Sony category. That 28 to 400 I just mentioned in Nikon's category. So there are tons of options out there for what you can find to use. Couple last things, and we'll wrap up for questions. Use the timer and camera app on your phone. It exists for a reason. If you're not into it, at least try the transfer feature to bring the photos over to your phone. You'll diminish the quality slightly, I'll be upfront with that, but at least now you don't have to sit there and transfer to your computer and then from the computer to your phone and go through all that stuff. You also can control, a lot of these apps let you edit the photos in the app, which is kind of cool too. So if you want to get into editing a little bit, but you're like, I don't want to spend money on it, that's a good way to get into it. If you're getting into content creation, which is a big part of why we started doing this class, more and more business owners or people who have a brand of some sort are coming in and asking questions about it because they don't want to pay someone $2,500 to do all this for them. So these are the 4 things you should be concerned about. Your video quality, your stabilization, your lighting, and your mics. When I was first getting into this class and like teaching it, the guys in our video and media department said one can be bad, the rest have to be good. Because if you have all of them bad, nobody cares about your video. And if more than one is bad, they're going to have critiques on every video you make. So video quality, just get proper lenses and proper camera body and settings for what you're trying to do. One of my buddies is a clothing maker. He makes clothes that are inspired by Y2K. And when he does it, he uses this really old, crappy Sony camera that he bought like in 1993 that his mom gave him. And he's like, that's what he takes all his photos with. But it works for his vision and how he makes his brand, right? Stabilization. If you're going to be running and gunning or shooting videos and doing stuff, get a tripod or get a gimbal. Lighting. Take a look at lighting. Lighting's super important when you're taking photos and video. You can make things darker, but you can't really make things brighter. Otherwise, it's going to start looking blurry. Microphones are another thing. Your camera has a mic in there, but it's not the best. It's like the speakers on the TVs. Most of the time you're going to need some sort of surround system or some sort of sound bar. They do the same thing on cameras with the mic system. So look at a shotgun mic, look at an on-camera mic. You can get a decent microphone for $80 and call it a day. But if you're going to get into it, those are 4 things you should pay attention to. If you want to get into it but you don't want to spend a lot of money, most of these companies make a kit of some sort. Some come with a camera, others will just come with a memory card, a tripod, a mic. Just something easy for you to get started with it without having to invest in a lot of money. Here's my recommended accessory list. And this is, I think, the last thing I got for you. I think I have one more quote after this, actually. If you're going to do anything, buy the top 5. Get a camera bag, protect all the stuff you just invested in. Get an extra battery, an extra memory card. A lens cleaning kit goes a long way. Don't use your sweater or your shirt to clean it. Again,
Guilty.
yeah, it's not going to be the first time. But it won't be the 20th time, but 100 times that you're doing that, you're going to make little scratches on the lenses. Eventually the lens won't focus right anymore. It'll have problems because it just can't see past all the gunk. So try to just use, like, I wear glasses, so I'm lucky enough I always have a cleaning cloth in my pocket. Just take that thing and just rub it on the lens. That thing goes a long way. And then a camera strap. If you already have a strap that came with it, great. If it hurts your neck, they sell ones with padding. They sell quick release ones. They've got all sorts of different straps out there for the camera. Get one that works good for you. Tripods are great, external hard drives, lens filters. If you ever have questions on those, anybody watching too, feel free to ever ask me about those. Additional lenses are great as well too, like we just talked about. In classes and workshops, keep being forever students when it comes to cameras because there's always something new, there's always some cool thing going on, and again, they're going to continuously change these things, so there's always going to be something new to learn if you're serious and like really love getting into this stuff. And I think the last thing I have for you, the bitterness of poor quality remains long after the sweetness of a low price is forgotten. I really like this quote. I'm a big fan of trying to save money as much as I can in photography. I have way too much equipment that costs way too much money that I'm still paying off in certain ways. But I will say this much. I don't regret it. It's expensive, but I love doing this kind of stuff. I do regret when I buy something that was cheap and like got a good deal on it and it doesn't benefit me at all. I think in the moment it's gonna do what I want, and then I start using it and I'm like, crap, this isn't what I wanted. So keep that in mind when you're getting into photography. I have friends that when I went to college, I went to the School of the Art Institute, they painted with ketchup and like ketchup water, and they made some really amazing works where I'm like, holy cow, like you guys are amazing artists. And then, but photography is one of those that like, if you want to be good, unfortunately, you can't just buy a camera from 1993 and expect it to look like, professional like stuff. You got to invest a little more into it, and that's the one kicker with the whole thing. So keep that in mind when you're getting into this stuff. Photography is awesome. It's a great hobby. It's a great thing to be good at, but it also can like end up in you spending more and more money when you didn't think you would. That's all I got for you guys. I kept it within an hour. So now any questions you guys have online, or if you guys have any, please feel free to ask. Next Thursday will be the intermediate class. So next Thursday we get into the manual control. So we're going to learn aperture, shutter, ISO, exposure compensation. We're going to learn about focusing. We're basically going to learn everything else that goes into the manual controls. So if I could give any homework or tell you to do stuff, practice automatic. Learn how the camera functions, click the info button, learn what your camera's doing when you're just putting it on that setting, and just take as many photos as you can. You can always delete, but it's great to just keep practicing it, and hopefully it will help. Other than that, that's all I got for you guys. If there's any questions too online, don't feel like comfortable asking, email, call me, whatever works. I'm off Tuesday, Wednesdays every week, so cool.
I did have a couple of questions.
What you got?
So I've been taking with automatic. It seems like it's very just like
White, like too bright.
Too bright. Yeah. I don't know if that's maybe an aperture thing, but if it's a higher aperture, it shouldn't necessarily be brighter then.
No, it doesn't necessarily have to be that.
And then the lenses.
Yeah, let's see.
I mean, we have been in a variety of situations, outside and whatnot. Don't scroll too far.
Goddamn.
For real.
Deal. I mean, it can look a little too whited out or washed out, but like for example, I just took that.
Okay.
And that looks pretty clean and cut. I mean, sometimes it could just be the quickness of it.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, like, when you're shooting, depending on what you're shooting exactly, like it could get a little bright, a little too bright on there. But again, it just depends.
Maybe it's like, I think, an expectation thing, I guess.
The nice part is that you can always change that later on too, like with the apps or with just the computer. If you think something's too washed out, it's most likely the exposure being raised a little bit more.
Okay.
That's the thing with auto, is like, especially with the DSLR cameras, they don't sometimes register light as well as you'd be expecting. So that you then just need to go back through and edit a little bit more, or get off auto completely.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so the program might be a good one for you to try.
That's the goal, ideally. My next question. Oh, the photos. It gives you the option what size or what type of photo you want to take.
I would say JPEG for now, unless you want to edit photos.
Okay.
RAW would then be great, but I would wait to just get better at it and then switch to RAW.
Okay.
I would say that when it comes to the photo size, that's up to you. I typically do the largest size. That way, if I put it into my computer and I want to crop a little bit more, there's more information, so if I crop in, it won't be as blurry.
Okay. So the one right now it's like the L.
Yeah, that should be the L large. That'll be the large JPEG. That's fine.
My last question. They're phasing out DSLRs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Slowly but surely.
How is that going to affect like our experience? Should we worry about buying lenses or?
No, I mean those things they're not going to go away. I
Right.
mean that's the thing. Like they're slowly but surely discontinuing them. But they've been saying that for the last since I started teaching this class 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And then since I've been in the app now 5 years, so like they've been talking about getting rid of them. They're just not pulling the plug quite yet.
I don't really understand the market for cameras. I don't like I know this model was introduced a while ago.
Yeah.
But this one might have been manufactured last year.
I mean, literally, they're still manufacturing them. Yeah.
Okay.
So like for this stuff, like I mean, I don't. Is it an open box? You got a brand new.
It was an open box, but I did check the date. It was last year, mid last year or something.
So you got 10 good years on that thing.
Yeah.
With the lenses, the nice part about them being more like discontinued is that they're gonna be lower prices on them.
Yeah.
So you can get good used gear out there for these things.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, check in with camera shops around. Like, I mean,
There's one in Des Plaines actually, Alpine.
Yeah, Alpine's fantastic. Yeah.
I swear to God. So I'm in industrial distribution. I was prospecting today, and there was a guy wearing a shirt that said, "We sell film," with like a Kodak shirt.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, "Oh, like I'm headed to this class this afternoon."
Yeah.
And he showed me. So we started talking, you know, and
Yeah.
he showed me this freaking sick camera. I don't even know what I was looking at.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so a Rolleiflex.
And everything was like inverted at the viewfinder.
So those are like the traditional, the brownie style cameras where it's like boxed, small, but it's sick because you can use one lens which is a zoom, one that's more of a prime, and then it's all upward. So when people shoot, they would shoot downwards and then click the thing. It's really cool. It's older film.
I was talking to, I believe his name was Isaiah
Yeah.
downstairs. He mentioned something odd because it was like contradictory to what you had said. He was like, "Well, if you have this kit lens, why would you buy a 50mm prime?"
Some of my guys still aren't like the biggest on photography. If you're getting a prime lens, it's because you're trying to get a better aperture and you're trying to get the best portrait possible.
Gotcha.
In his case, I understand where he's coming from because you're kind of doubling up depending on what you're getting.
Right.
So I guess it depends on the prime you're getting. If you're getting a 1.8, it's going to be better than the 50 on this guy.
Better in low light situations.
Yes. Better on blurring the background, better for that portrait.
Gotcha. And I think, I actually tried to buy one before the class and they were out.
Okay.
It's on special order, but I did see them out.
You might want to start looking online for them because I think we're mostly for our sake kind of rolling away from
I
it.
saw one at Target.
Yeah.
Either it was Walmart or Target in Lake Zurich, but okay, cool. Next week we might actually just join online because we're out in Barrington.
Oh yeah.
So I was working around in the area and I had her come out here from work. But
Easy.
I really appreciate it.
No.
It's really cool.
Yeah, I'm glad. Hopefully you got something out of it. Next week, the intermediate one definitely is more hands-on. So yeah, by all means, use the chat feature whenever you want. Like anybody who's on there can say anything they want right now. Most part, I would say I very rarely get people chatting on this. But I always encourage it. So anyone still watching right now, please, if there is any questions that you had on the class, you can chat right now. But for the most part, yeah. If you're at home, I usually start at 5:30 exactly.
Let me make sure I have it's
just app electronics, and then as soon as it's on, if you're subscribed to the channel and you hit the or whatever the bell thing is, you'll get notified that we went live with the video. If not, 5:30 next Thursday, just click onto it, and then you'll see my lovely face just like.
Oh yeah, so here we are live right
exactly.
now. Depending on where we are, we might just.
If you have time to come in, it's nice because the next class, I'll be honest with you, is more about those manual controls.
Okay.
And those do sometimes get a little confusing.
Okay.
But again, the cool part, what I always recommend with them, is just go and set something up on your table or go in your yard and like find a patch of flowers, something.
Yeah.
And just take the same photo over and over again and change the dial slightly.
I'm an in-person guy, so I think I'll try to make it.
If you can make it in person, by all means. I like the in-person ones. I feel like then you can ask these types of questions. I think a lot of people are scared to chat online, but this is the most popular out of the bunch of the classes. And then after this one, it starts to get more like people fall off. The advanced photography one is the last one I probably would tell you to come to if you are. That one we're going to talk about editing photos and then just tips on taking good photos, both portrait, landscape. The last class of the month is the one that I add, I hate to say filler, but some people do come out for it. It's beyond the traditional cameras. We're talking about like drones, GoPros,
Cool.
all the stuff that is a camera.
Sure.
That could I call it like adding a tool to your tool belt or like arsenal, where it's, when I say I have 5 cameras, I have a GoPro at home, I have a drone as well that I can fly for aerial footage, and then I have like 3 actual real cameras that I use, or 2 actual real cameras, so.
I've got a friend with a GoPro, it's pretty cool.
They're cool. Again, they're case cameras where it's like you need it for a specific reason, but they're fun. So.
Thank you for tonight.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks for coming in,
Yeah,
guys. I appreciate it.
We'll see if we can make it out here.
Yeah.
Otherwise, live.
Yeah, if not, you'll be able to follow it online.
Yep.
And make sure you delete all the photos off your camera. Take care, guys. Be safe.
Good night.
You too. Alright, everybody online. It doesn't look like anybody has too many questions for me, so I'm going to cut the video there. Thank you guys for watching the video. My name is Saxon. I'm your camera host. We do this every Thursday from 5:30 to 7 or from 5:30 to 6:30, depending on how many questions that we get. Next Thursday, intermediate cameras. Just to give everyone the date so you have it now, that is the 12th. So 6/12 next Thursday will be the intermediate